going to be painting this little scene over on the left, and this is an older lesson of mine where I was demonstrating how I like to take, in this case, a spring painting or a spring reference and then turn it into an autumn scene. I'm going to be doing this with an alcohol wash followed by an acrylic ink underpainting. But instead of describing my steps exactly, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my personal experience with being an artist, especially whenever I feel blocked or burdened in that artistic endeavor. Sometimes it's really difficult for a teacher to feel those different feelings of being blocked and burdened, or even being overwhelmed and burnt out by the painting process. It's something that I deal with a lot, and I think a lot of artists do deal with this without really wanting to talk about it. It's one of those hush-hush topics that we're not supposed to admit some days when we come into the studio and wanting to do anything but paint. I am a prime example of that. And as much as we want our worlds to look perfect and happy all the time, there are some days where life is so heavy, and even the concepts of painting and these wonderful, beautiful creative process that used to bring us a lot of joy has somehow become difficult, and it has become a burden. And how do we get past that, or do we? I picked up the daily painting movement early on in my painting practice and really clung to it as a way to learn and grow very quickly. And it really did help me learn and grow very quickly. However, the pressure of putting out a daily painting over the years has become difficult to maintain. I have growing kids, I have other personal responsibilities, and it's not always possible to put out something that you're proud of to share with the world. Of course, what this really means is that I wasn't willing to put out something that wasn't perfect. And when you are a slave of perfectionism, as I have tended to be, this can be a really hard battle to fight. This is only made worse with social media and the feelings that if we're not producing work constantly that's new and fresh and exciting and in different formats, both video and still imagery, then we are just not on the ball. I think about these things all day long, every day, as someone who puts out art lessons, art videos, blog posts, newsletters, all of the things that you're supposed to do. But I'm just one person, and sometimes it's just overwhelming to where I don't want to do any of it at all. The act of creativity is brave, and all of you that are watching this and listening, when you practice, when you put yourself out there, it's incredibly brave to be vulnerable and to show people your very hard work. And I hope that you know that I don't take it lightly, and others don't either, when you share the love of the creation that you have and that you have brought to your own artwork. I know that one of my problems as an artist teacher is that I can say all of these encouraging words to my students, but sometimes I don't say them to myself. We are our own worst critics, and the fear of rejection, the fear of man, the fear of our own creativity even is a huge enemy. We've all dealt with imposter syndrome, that feeling that you don't really belong, that whatever you've accomplished is all an accident and you are not good enough. I go through pretty cyclical battles with these thoughts, every several months as I have been creating and teaching and pursuing pastel painting, learning as much as I can about it, trying to improve my technique, improve my vision, all of the things that go along with learning something, and not allowing myself to fail or to be vulnerable is sometimes the detriment to growth. So this is my invitation to you to be open and honest and vulnerable with your audience. Whenever I come into my studio and I want to do anything but paint, I used to really force myself to pull out the paper anyway and battle through those feelings. Now I sit down at my desk or I go out into my garden and I think about the reasons I began to paint in the first place. It wasn't to be seen. It wasn't to have any kind of platform. It sure wasn't to post something on Instagram every day or even here on YouTube once a week. It was because it brought me joy. As complicated as we make painting and using pastels, really it's simply choosing a color and putting it on the paper. And to me, that was such a simple, glorious focus when I first started painting that sometimes I can just lose. I stress myself out. I want my work to be perfect and gloriously beautiful every single time. But it's a journey and it's a practice. It's important to focus less on the final product and more on the process and the way you felt as you were creating. When we have gratitude and focus on the process instead of the product, there is no more pressure because the process is key. When I begin a painting with curiosity instead of stress, the process becomes so much more fulfilling. I have a childlike zeal. I have so much more boldness and bravery to try something that I might not have tried before because it's the process, not the product. In this particular piece, I was really curious about how to take a spring, very spring green reference and turn it into more of an autumn warm scene. I had so much fun experimenting with an alcohol wash layered with an acrylic ink wash, pulling those colors down and into the water and developing my mark making in interesting ways. Also, experimenting with not covering up all of that underpainting that I worked so hard on. We work really hard as pastelists. We need to get texture in our work because we can't layer on that thick paint like oil painters and acrylic painters can. And so we need to use different techniques to get the same results. A lot of that for me is with the underpainting practices and the different methods of the underpainting. But I don't want to kill my underpaintings. I also want to allow my paintings to have a little bit of air and to breathe a little bit. And for me, that means not covering up the entire surface with a thick slurry of pastel. If you're feeling a little blocked and just plain like not painting lately, just know that you're not alone and that there are so many artists that struggle with the same feeling. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you aren't a good artist. It doesn't mean that you're not dedicated. All it means is that you need a break and that you need to remember the whys of your painting in the first place. I encourage you to think back on the reasons you began painting. Don't do it for anyone else. Just do it for you. And remember that this is all joy.